Hello everyone, this will be a short getting started video using SWAT Plus Editor version 3.0. To start, you want to make sure that you already have our interfaces installed, which you can do by going to swat.tamu.edu and clicking this button here to download SWAT Plus, followed by the green button at the top of the page here, which will take you to our Gitbook installation page. Please follow the instructions to install QGIS and the Windows installer for SWAT Plus 3.0. Next, you'll want to make sure that you are already familiar with setting up a project in QSWAT Plus. Please be sure to follow the QSWAT Plus manual and complete steps 1 and 2 in QSWAT Plus. We're going to pick up this tutorial in step 3 of QSWAT Plus, which is editing the inputs in SWAT Plus Editor. You can download the files used in this demo by clicking this Getting Started link over here, and then downloading this demo zip file here. Once those are saved to your computer, please extract the zip file into this folder, and you will see your project files here. Double-click the QGIS file to open it in QGIS. And since you should already have QSWAT Plus installed, you should see this blue icon with an S+ on it to open QSWAT Plus. And again, you should have steps 1 and 2 already completed, which means you'll have this Edit Inputs and Run SWAT Plus button enabled, which you can click to open SWAT Plus Editor. This will open your project files. You can change your project name here if you like, and then we ask you give a brief description of your project location and watershed area. This will help the developers in case you have any issues kind of tracking down what inputs you should be using. So please fill it out if possible. It really helps them. This last checkbox is to use a light version of SWAT Plus, which simplifies the hydrology greatly. We're not going to go over that in this tutorial, so please leave it unchecked. And then press Start to import your watershed. For this demo, it will happen very quickly. If you have a larger project, it might take a few minutes to import all of your connections into the SWAT Plus format. If you run into any errors on that step, please check the message and post it in our user groups. Probably you had an issue during step 1 or step 2 of QSWAT Plus. If you got any errors in that, you cannot expect SWAT Plus Editor to work correctly. So please post those issues to either the SWAT Plus Editor group or the QSWAT Plus group if you know where to pinpoint your error. But we didn't have any errors, so this will load our project here, and I'll give a brief overview of the object totals, the land use distribution, the total area of your watershed, and the software it was created with. This is just helpful for us to know the versions that it was created with. This is not necessarily the version that you are using right now, but in our case, the editor versions match up. So to get started, you're going to want to go to Edit SWAT Plus Inputs. The first thing you're going to want to do is your weather data. Weather generator is a required input. This is monthly statistical data to help fill in any gaps in your observed weather data. If you do not have weather generator on your own, we do provide the SWAT Plus WGN SQLite file, which is just a global data for the weather generator, and you can use that if you like. We also have other formats you can use. You can do a 2-file format or a 1 CSV file format. Once you select one of these, you can download a template to make sure that your files are following the correct format. Please make sure for any WGN data that you have values. You can't have a -99 and you can't have 0 values. You will get errors in your model if you do not have values for your weather generators. So please, again, use the database if you do not have your own. In our case, our robot demo was packaged with WGN files in the 2 CSV file format. We have one for stations and one for the monthly data values. So let's select those here. click the folder icon, and then let's browse to where our files are. And then do that again for the monthly values. And you want to check this box if you're using observed weather data, which we are, and then click import data. And this is just one single station of weather generator data. If you click this little icon over here, this lets you edit a row in any table. So click that, and here you will see the lat long, the elevation, and then all the monthly values here. So we can press back to go back to our table, and our weather generator data is complete. Next, we're going to want to import our observed weather data. From here, click the import data button, and be sure to read all of these instructions so that you can get the templates correctly. We accept currently 2 different formats of weather data. You can do the old SWAT 2012 format, or you can do the new SWAT Plus format. We have samples. Once you select which one you want to do, we do have samples that you can download from our website, so please make sure that your data is formatted correctly. It's really important that your files are saved with UTF-8 encoding and that you replace any accent or non-Unicode characters in the station names. Otherwise, you might hit an error right away when you try and import your data. So in our case, we have the SWAT 2012 format, and we're going to select that folder from our Robot Demo project folder. So click that weather data file, and then just select the folder. And then you can choose where to save your SWAT Plus weather files, because we are using the old format. It's going to convert them into the SWAT Plus format. You can just use this default location here, which is your scenario, text it out. However, if you wanted to save them somewhere else, you can choose a different location, and then they'll be copied to your text it out when you run the model. So we're just going to leave that as is and click import data. And now we have our station imported. You can click on any of these files to view the data. And you can see this is the converted to SWAT Plus format of your station data here. And that's it for weather data. Again, this table format is common throughout the SWAT Plus editor. You can click this edit icon to view the station data. There's also a red X over here if you want to delete an individual station, or you can delete all of your weather data by clicking this red delete all button. That is the required inputs that you need to run the model. If you want to edit any other inputs in your model, see these sections here. They are closely aligned to the SWAT Plus input file format. And one thing to note is that we try and provide as much documentation as possible. However, that is still very much a work in progress. Each page follows a similar format. So let's go ahead and click on one of our connections pages. This is all our channels that we imported from QSWAT Plus. You will see up top here, you'll see the page name, and then on the far right is a link to the documentation. So if we click on that, it's going to open the SWAT Plus IO documentation for the file that is referenced from that screen on the editor. Some of these are still a little bit bare bones, but we're trying our best to complete that documentation. Okay. You can also, some other just things to note of general use with the editor. If you have a lot of rows here and you wanted to search for a particular record, you can search by name, and it'll filter that table for you. Just delete the text to clear your filter. The rows are also paged. You'll see here showing 1 through 50 of 87 rows. To go to page 2, it's in the bottom right corner. Just click on page 2. If you wanted to add a new channel, for the connection sections, we don't necessarily recommend that unless you really know what you're doing, because you have to add all of your connections properly. But if you wanted to do that, you go to create record and add a new channel in this way. Generally, you're going to want to go back to QSWAT Plus and add it back in steps 1 and 2. So if we want to click on and edit a channel, just to kind of view and edit it, and let me pick a different one so that I can show you the outflow. So you'll see this is channel 2. You can see that when we imported our weather data, it automatically got assigned our weather station. And you have multiple weather stations. When you import the weather data, it will match the closest weather station to your channel based on the latitude and longitude. You'll see over here in the top right, the outflow connections, basically channel 2 flows into channel 1. And you can add and modify your connections as needed here. You'll see each channel also has a bunch of properties associated with it. There's initial properties, which you can select from this drop down here to view more information about what this is exactly. You'll see a little data icon over here. Hover over that and you can see what this field is referencing, the name of the file. You can browse the table by clicking that. It'll just pop up the table. In this case, it only has one row. You can close that, go back here, and you can also edit the item. So if we go to edit item, then we can edit this initial channel values directly. And then let's go back to our channel, and you can do the same with any of these basically table linkages here. So again, you'll see this one actually has a lot. So let's say we wanted to change that and you want to start typing. Start typing and again, it'll filter your rows. If you make any changes, just press Save Changes here. Another thing you can do is edit multiple rows. Not every single page in SWAT Plus Editor will have this, but a lot of them will. It just kind of depends on the format of the input file and if that's feasible to edit multiple or not. If that option is available, just click here and you can kind of filter how you want to apply these changes. Let's say we wanted to make all these changes to Subbasin 1, all the channels in Subbasin 1. If you selected Subbasin 1 and 2, and then you could do all the channels in Subbasin 1 or 2, or you can uncheck and only do specific ones. And then if you want to make changes and apply this, let's say we want to apply to channels 3 and 4 only, and we wanted to change the weather station, you could do that by checking that, and then it won't save anything else that's not checked. It will only save whatever you check here and only apply it to whatever you check in the final box here. And then when you're ready to do that, just click Save Bulk Changes and your changes will be applied to the rows that you have selected here. Okay. So let's close the connection section and just briefly go over the other things here. We have our basin parameters, which are for our entire watershed. Land use management is a big one. There are several sections here. Our main land use management entry file is this top row. You can see we have 4 land uses here. Each land use might have a plant community. It might have a management schedule. And then some of your other properties here. To edit management schedule, you can either click on it from this table here, or you can go down in the left menu to management schedules. There are multiple ways to do management schedules in SWAT Plus. We were not going to go over that in this introduction video, but there are decision tables. We have some decision table editing, which you can do here in this little schedule builder. Please just follow the guide. To make changes to this, you can click on this and edit some basic properties of your decision table. You can also do the classic management operations, which you might be familiar with from SWAT 2012. You can add those manually here. We do have a decision table section. This is going to be updated in the next version of SWAT Plus, but I haven't had time to do it yet. We will have this available where you can edit these tables easily and get all the appropriate options that you need. But for now, that sort of feature is available in SWAT Plus Toolbox. SWAT Plus Toolbox is not covered in this video, but James has a lot of tutorials on how to use that in SWAT Plus Toolbox. We also have some basics of calibration. They're not fully implemented yet. Again, for calibration, you're mostly going to want to use SWAT Plus Toolbox. And then we have some other sections here, such as the databases. You can modify your plant parameters by clicking on a row here. It'll show you what our official dataset value is from the SWAT Plus team, what your value is if you wanted to change them, and it'll give all the descriptions of all the parameters here. So that's all I'm going to go over with editing the different inputs. When you are ready to run your model, you're going to want to go to the leftmost menu and click this play button to run SWAT Plus. And here you're going to want to configure the simulation settings. Choose where to write your input files, which is automatically selected for you from scenarios, default, text, and out. If you are doing some advanced text file manipulation of your files, you can check here to make sure that SWAT Plus editor does not overwrite any of your manual changes. Let's say you provided your own hydrology.hide file. You might want to check that here, right? And this means if you check that box, SWAT Plus editor will not write the hydrology.hide file. It will use the one that you put in the text and elf folder yourself, and it will not overwrite any of your changes. Please be careful using that and make sure you know what you are doing. Okay. Next, you can set your simulation period. This is automatically adjusted when you import your observed weather data, but you can refine your selection here if we don't want to run the full simulation. Let's change this to 2000 just so that this can run quickly for this tutorial video. We do have some advanced options that are mostly not covered through the editor. And then after this, you can choose your output to print. You can adjust your warm-up period here. And you can choose which output you want to print. The basic required ones are checked by default. We recommend keeping these checked so that you can use our SWAT Plus checker, which we will go over after you run your model. Okay. So let's do that, and then you can choose what you want to run. You don't have to run all three of these options right now if you want, but you do have to at least run the first one, which is just to write your input files. If you want to go ahead and run the model, keep that checked. If you have a special executable of the model that you want to run that is not packaged with SWAT Plus Editor, click this little folder here to open Windows Explorer, and then open this README text file so that you can replace these exes with your own version of the executable. Again, keep in mind that this version of SWAT Plus Editor is meant to work with the version of SWAT Plus that it is packaged with, and if you use your own version, things might not work as expected. And then the final checkbox is to analyze output for visualization, and what this does is it imports your text output files into a SQLite database so that you can use SWAT Plus check and the visualization components in QSWAT Plus, which would be step 4 of QSWAT Plus after you exit SWAT Plus Editor. So let's leave all three of those checked and then click Save Settings and Run selected. It'll take a minute to finish executing all the years of your simulation. And again, if you run into an error, it'll pop up a full stack trace of your model. What you're going to want to do is go back. Let's say you got an error message. You're going to want to go back. And do you see this highlighted here in this checkbox, Use Debug Version? If you get an error, you want to go back, click Use the Debug Version, and then rerun those steps, and then copy the contents of the error message that you get into our user groups so that someone can help diagnose the error for you. But we ran without error. So you'll see this menu of options after you have finished all your runs. You can run SWAT Plus Check, which is built into SWAT Plus Editor, or you can go straight to SWAT Plus Toolbox if you chose to install that. You can save your scenario, which basically copies all your data to another folder and kind of just saves all your inputs and outputs so that you don't lose it if you want to make further changes to your model. You can go ahead and browse the directory in Windows Explorer, or you can just exit or just go back to the editor. So we're going to choose Run SWAT Plus Check, which just quickly opens the checker. And all this is you can browse through these different sections and see, basic overview of your model run, make sure things are as you expected, heed to any warnings here. And if you need to go make changes to your model, you can go back, edit your inputs, repeat the run as needed. So if you are done in SWAT Plus Editor, just press this green Exit SWAT Plus Editor button to return to QSWAT Plus. And now you'll see that the Step 4 Visualize button is enabled. And we're not going to go over the visualization component in QSWAT Plus in this video. So that concludes what we're going over with SWAT Plus Editor. Briefly, before I end the video, I'm going to open back up the editor. Every time you open the editor, after you've already used it once, it's going to ask you this question if your watershed has changed. That is asking you if you change steps 1 or 2 of QSWAT Plus, you're going to want to re-import your channels, your HRUs, things like that, back into the editor. We did not make any changes, so I'm going to choose no and just continue to the editor. Quickly, before I end this video, I want us to go over where you can get help. So you will see a help menu up here with several different options you can click on. Documentation, reporting problems, reporting a problem with the editor itself, reporting a model error. Here you can also check for updates for our software and also be taken to the GitHub for SWAT Plus Editor. Another quick way to access the help menu is to click the question mark icon here in the lower left corner. And please just read this page thoroughly. If you have problems, we recommend contacting the user group, which is linked here. And please take a screenshot of or copy the information in this page. If you have an error with the editor, it will help me diagnose it better. All of our user groups are linked over here. We do have different ones for our different software tools. We actually have another group for SWAT Plus Toolbox, which I forgot to include in this list. But we ask that you try, if possible, to isolate where your error is occurring. If you had an error in QSWAT Plus itself, it will be faster for you to get a response if you post it to the QSWAT Plus group. If you had an error during the run step, this play button here, and you were running the model, it is easier if you post that to the model group. And if you had an error in this interface, just post it to the editor group. And that concludes this video. Thank you.